Hi, welcome. I'm so pleased you could come. And I'm very excited to share my new body of work, eco-printed paintings, that is being hosted by the Buckley Center Gallery at the University of Portland, whose director is Pat Bogner. And although it wasn't able to be on the campus due to the pandemic, it gave me the opportunity, along with my partner's help, Rick Brinkman, to create this beautiful virtual gallery that you're getting to view. In the course of this talk, I'd like to share the art and also my process and some of my inspirations. The name of my show I'm calling Kairos. Kairos is a Greek term that speaks to a quality of time, a time that is ripe and ready and almost pregnant with the need for change. It's a term also that I'm familiar with through studying Carl Jung's psychology, and he makes reference to Kairos as a metamorphosis of the gods, of the symbols and the belief structures that we live by. And this year, particularly with the pandemic and with the long overdue outrage that we've been seeing to racial injustice and the injustice that we're doing to the earth, Gaia. And so it does seem a very apropos term that speaks to what I have been and what we all have been enduring, particularly and most forefront this year. I consider my latest eco-printed paintings as a kind of collaboration with nature. And why I say that is that it's very much about the process and how these paintings evolve and are created is that I start first with a piece of raw silk canvas, and I have to cook it, scour it to get kind of a gummy residue out of the fabric. And after that, I put mordant into the fabric in order that the fabric might receive the natural dyes that are in the plants I use to make the prints. And the plants I'm using, are things like maple leaves, oak, eucalyptus, sumac. And so after this initial process of cooking, scouring, and mordant, I then place the plant forms on my raw silk canvas and arrange them in such a way as to create some kind of balanced composition. And then it's like rolled up and put in a pot and steamed for 3 hours. And when I unroll it, I don't know exactly what I'll get. And so there's an element of a random, who knows what I'll get. And when I see the images I get, I'll then figure out, well, what parts of this canvas do I want to use? And then I mount it onto cradled birch boards and create the actual canvas that I'm going to then paint on. And then I'll add other images, and part of that involves my making a story within my own mind, creating a certain inner world or a certain landscape that I'm thinking of. At the same time, too, I often find as I'm working that the painting itself will dictate where it wants to go. For instance, when I was working on Sophia's garden, the painting initially was a piece of fabric, and I saw many things in it. And then I decided I wanted to put some kind of head in it. The shape was a circle, and it looked like a yin-yang sign to me. And that very much spoke to me about the balance of nature and nature's seasons, from the winter solstice to the summer solstice, the light and the dark. At the same time, too, I was reading a bunch on kind of esoteric alchemy, and there was a figure called Sophia, who is the wisdom of God, or also the spark of creation that's within matter. And it also speaks to the feminine within the modern culture that really has been brought down, and the split between matter and spirit. So as I was working on this figure, it was a very stiff kind of, I don't know, it was Greek figure. It looked kind of androgynous. And at one point, in the course of this year, with everything that was going on, I just said, it's got to be a different figure in there. So I actually, scraped it out and decided to put in a profile of a beautiful African American woman. And so I sketched it in from a photograph with a pastel, chalk pastel. And then from there went on just to work it and just to kind of make her come alive. And so the resulting one was totally different than the first figure. And so that's kind of, it speaks to my process, because often it isn't, I'm responding to the images that the plant forms give me. And at the same time, the painting has a certain trajectory, almost an autonomous direction that it wants to go in. And in this case, Sophia's garden, she decided. I'd like to talk next about the eco-print painting, The Rabbit in the Moon. I've gotten a lot of enthusiastic response to that one, and I wanted to share my inspiration on that. I live in a very beautiful wooded neighborhood, and every day I go for a little trot through the neighborhood for some exercise. And this year, due to the pandemic, the school garden was not being occupied because kids weren't there. And I would find that when I ran through the area, there were so many rabbits. There were mama rabbits and baby rabbits, and often I would stop, and I even found too, if I used a little soft voice, that they would respond to me. They wouldn't run away as much. In any case, I wanted to use a rabbit in one of my works. And so while I was working on that, I was also looking at mythology around rabbits, and the fact that the Chinese have a myth of the rabbit in the moon that is an image of a rabbit that is kind of pulverizing the grain to make an elixir. It's kind of an alchemist himself. And so that's kind of the inspiration on that one. And that one, whenever I look at it, kind of warms my heart, as do the rabbits that I see when I run through my neighborhood.